It's no wonder why the city of Fresno and so many Valley businesses choose McHenry Protective and Investigative Services. With over 50 years of experience in public safety and security, McHenry's team of experts will safeguard you, your commercial property, and your next big event. Professional service, marked patrol vehicles, 24-hour dispatch, and friendly, observant, and responsive armed and unarmed guards are just a few of the reasons you should contact McHenry at 559-478-7747 or visit them online at mchenryprotection.com.
If you have a need to promote your business or event, please consider MeTV Fresno for your next campaign. MeTV reaches over 100,000 of your potential customers in the Fresno area every single week. Plus, you can rest assured that your commercial is running in the greatest family-friendly programs of all time. MeTV Fresno delivers a strong, loyal audience ready to buy, and your campaign will cost a fraction of what you're paying for your advertising now. Call me today to find out how affordable MeTV is at 905-1925.
Giddy up with westerns, we've got the best ones. Superhero, sci-fi, spin, grab the popcorn and stay in. Dramas, mystery, and action, take a look and see what happens. Carol, Andy, Lucy, MASH, timeless comedies full of laughs.
Hey, that's me!
That's me. That's me, Chief.
Yeah, me,
You gotta see, that's memorable, that's me. Me TV.
Hi, I'm John Mallis. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this day. It's Wednesday morning, and today we're talking a lot about politics, about the Fresno Police Department, and much more, my friends. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Our guest is already here, seated inside the studio. Call in and weigh in. Today's program sponsored by McHenry Protective Services.
Tonight I want to discuss the importance of the television medium to the American people.
And welcome back to the program here on Connect with Me on MeTV Fresno. I'm John Mallis on a Wednesday morning. Little programming note for you. Tomorrow here on the program will be Becky's Cinema. She'll talk about some of the movies that are out in the theaters, or if you want to watch them on Netflix or Vudu or wherever that you watch them. Even if you pipe them into your home illegally, my friends, it's none of my business. But she will talk about what movie she saw, which one she liked, and which one she didn't like. We may even throw in John Wayne. Who knows? That's one of her favorite actors. That's a little bit of a joke. Anyway, on Friday, Lee Brand will be here. He's running for mayor. He wants your vote. I guess he's in the runoff with Henry Perea. We'll see what happens on November the 8th for the general election. But for now, we're going to talk about the Fresno Police Department and another shooting that took place over the weekend. It was all over the news this past weekend in the paper, the Fresno Bee, as one of the panels just fell down behind me. No problem, my friend. The show must and will go on. As I said, another shooting over the weekend. This one involved the Fresno Police Department. 19-year-old Dylan Noble was shot and killed by police. Apparently, he was unarmed, but one witness told the Fresno Police Department that they saw Dylan Noble in a truck with a rifle. Police say that when they confronted the suspect, he failed to comply, so they had no choice but to shoot him. Now, the two officers who did the shooting, they are on administrative leave. One is a 20-year veteran. The other is a 17-year veteran of the force. They were wearing body cams. Apparently, at this point, the matter is still under investigation. This past weekend, there was a vigil held for the victim, Dylan Noble. Here's how it looked on Channel 47.
Breaking news out of Southeast Fresno. Shields Avenue near Armstrong reopens after a standoff between demonstrators and Fresno police. It's the site of an officer-involved shooting on Saturday afternoon. A 19-year-old was killed. Tonight, his friends gathered for a vigil, but that vigil turned to chaos. CBS 47's Connie Tran is live at Shields and Armstrong with the confrontation. And Connie, what's it like there now?
Well, Catherine, it's certainly calmed and very quiet now, but you can see that there's probably a very small gathering of less than a dozen people here at the Chevron and Fast and Easy. People gathering around candles and pictures of 19-year-old Dylan Noble, and those candles and pictures are laid right at the spot and location where Noble was shot yesterday afternoon. Now, the vigil started around 8 o'clock tonight, and there were at least 100 people here. Many were very, very emotional, and some were also upset, specifically upset at the Fresno Police Department. Fresno police officers started arriving an hour after the vigil began because they say they were receiving disturbance calls about reckless driving and a large gathering. The crowd then dispersed onto Shields near Armstrong, blocking the street. Many were yelling at the officers, refusing to move onto the sidewalk. Some threw trash at the officers. It finally took one man from the crowd to approach the police and go on the intercom to ask the crowd to remain peaceful and get off the street. The man asked the large crowd to celebrate their friend Dylan elsewhere.
Amazing sense of humor, big goofy smile, huge heart, made everybody laugh. I loved him from day one. The kid was my heart immediately.
We initially blocked the streets for their safety because we didn't want them getting hit by a car. We talked to them about the concerns. They're still here and they're going to be expressing some of their grief, but they understand our concerns. We understand theirs, and we have a couple officers standing by just to make sure that no one bothers them. They're out of the road, and that's pretty much about it.
A couple dozen officers had been called out, but Lieutenant Alvarez said their main goal was just to make sure the crowd stayed off the street. And we spoke with some friends of Dylan's who say they wish that yesterday's shooting had certainly gone a different way. Now, the two officers who were involved in that OAS yesterday are veterans of 17 and 20 years, respectively, and both of them have been placed on administrative leave. And, of course, this case is still under investigation. Live in East Central Fresno, Connie Tran, CBS 47 Eyewitness News.
Live in our studio now is Charles Chuck Magill. He is a defense attorney and attorney at law for the better part of 25 years right here in the city of Fresno. He's defended some of these cases. He knows all about it. He knows the court system and the law, and he is also a sponsor on this program. So we're glad that he's back from his big trip in Australia to talk about this and much more. Certainly going to talk politics on the program as well today. But first, talk about the Fresno Police Department because, you know, the budget was proposed and then it passed the city council by a vote of 7-0 just recently, and they voted to increase the number of officers to add to the Fresno Police Department. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Police Chief Jerry Dyer and his future with Charles Chuck Magill. Today's sponsor, McHenry Protective Services. Anxious to hear from you. Your phone calls at 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back in just a moment. It's no wonder why the city of Fresno and so many Valley businesses choose McHenry Protective and Investigative Services. With over 50 years of experience in public safety and security, McHenry's team of experts will safeguard you, your commercial property, and your next big event. Professional service, marked patrol vehicles, 24-hour dispatch, and friendly, observant, and responsive armed and unarmed guards are just a few of the reasons you should contact McHenry at 559-478-7747 or visit them online at mchenryprotection.com.
Explore strange new worlds on MeTV. Seek out new life.
I've seen old photographs of this period. Let's get out of here.
And new civilizations. Boldly go to Mayberry and the Andy Griffith Show.
Weeknights at 8 on MeTV Fresno.
Back here on the program, 436-MeTV option 11. Our thanks to McHenry Protective Services for their sponsorship here today on the program. Charles Chuck Magill is here. We thank you for being here, sir. How was your trip to Australia?
It was fabulous, fabulous.
Yeah. Once in a lifetime trip, huh? Great. Yeah.
Shout out to those San Joaquin kids that went with me.
All right. Did you sneak a kangaroo back in the country? No.
Not a live one, but I got a couple of plush ones that are pretty cute.
All right. Let's talk about something serious here. And this happened over the weekend, of course. You know, this police shooting that involved a 19-year-old Dylan Noble. What do you make of it, just by what you know?
You know, what little I know is what I've heard in the media, and the reality of it is whenever you have something like this that happens, the chief comes out immediately and vouches for the officers and says that there's videotape that supports the officers shooting. But It seems to me that Fresno's police department is being shot to shoot first and ask questions later, and I think that's a real sad thing for our citizens. Apparently, all they had was a call that someone said he was armed with a weapon, and that caused the officers to believe that if he made any kind of furtive movements, they should shoot him. And I think that's just wrong. I really do.
Yeah, one of the witnesses, according to all the news reports, told the Fresno Police Department that, hey, this guy is driving a truck, he's at Shields and Armstrong, he's got a rifle, he's dressed in camouflage gear. So all this leading police to believe that perhaps he was armed, but in your opinion, they didn't know once they arrived whether he was armed or not. Should they have used more restraint?
Again, I think that the reality is
without being there.
I think they're being taught to shoot first and ask questions later. And I
who's
think
teaching?
I think that there's a philosophy in Fresno Police Department that they are to protect themselves first, and I think that's the reason why we have so many shootings of citizens who are being shot because there are mental health issues. You know, the supposed suicide by a police officer. I think it happens too often in our community because of the fact that our law enforcement's being taught to shoot first and ask questions later.
Even with those people that have mental health issues, but there were reports that the Fresno Police Department had said that this kid, 19 years old, Dylan Noble, had said, my life isn't worth living. He said some other things, and then he made a movement as if he had a weapon, according to police. Now, they were wearing body cams. That's when they shot. But then, his girlfriend or fiance disputes that. He says he was a happy kid. He had just gotten a new job. He was engaged to be married, supposedly. Things were going well in his life. It's hard to make these situations. It's hard to make sense out of these situations.
It's what do they call that? The quarterbacking on the couch. It's really hard to say what the officers did at the time was wrong because we're looking at it from the subjective view of the past. But again, I think that there is a philosophy at the Fresno Police Department where the officers' lives are more important than the citizens that they're protecting, and they shoot first and ask questions later. I mean, the reality is, how do you shoot someone when when they don't have a weapon? I don't know. I mean, don't you think that they should know that the person's armed before they shoot him? I think they should. I think that they need to wait at least for the moment for them to see something that looks like a weapon versus just shoot because of a furtive movement. Because the reality of it is there could be a variety of different reasons why someone's not going to respond to law enforcement the way they expect them to respond. They could be deaf. There could be health issues that cause them to not be able to respond to what the officer's saying. And so if they're acting so quickly that they shoot people without weapons, then I think that there's a real systemic problem that needs to be addressed in the department.
Put up the picture of Jerry Dyer. He is the police chief. Supposedly, he may or may not stay on for the next 2 or 3 years, depending on who the next mayor is. There's the chief right there. Where does this culture and mentality come from? Does it start at the top with Jerry Dyer and filter on down?
I think it does. I really do. I think there's a philosophical view of Fresno's law enforcement that they have to protect themselves first over the citizens that they represent. And I think it happens as a result of, it's hard to say, but there's per capita for our city, the size the city is, we have way too many officer-involved shootings where the person who dies is a citizen of the city, and they're not armed. That's wrong.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is a philosophical view that law enforcement's placing their own security above that of their citizens.
Now, keep in mind, Jerry Dyer was a member of the SWAT team at one time. He was the public information officer as well. So, more than likely, being a member of the SWAT team, you have to have that certain kind of mentality as well. And this was years ago that he was on the SWAT team. So, I don't know what's going on at the top, and we don't even know if Jerry Dyer will stay on once the new mayor is elected in November. We don't know what's going to happen. He may or may not stay another 2 or 3 years, Chuck.
Well, he'd be a fool to leave. Basically what he's making right now is retirement on top of retirement, a big salary. And so...
hang on, caller.
I don't think anybody would want to leave when they're making $350,000, $400,000 a year.
Unless they force him out.
Right,
earlier.
but I mean, realistically, I mean, he's making bank right now. I mean, it'd make no sense for him to leave, and it doesn't appear as though either one of the candidates that's running for mayor has issues with the police department because, like you just said at the top of the hour, it was a unanimous vote from the city council to raise the police budget. You know, Brand is on that city council. Perea is not, but Perea has the support of the Police Officers Association as well as the Fire Department Association. So I would suspect that he would be a supporter of
I think
Dyer
Jerry Dyer endorsed him, didn't he?
I believe he did. So either candidate that gets elected, I don't see having a problem with Jerry Dyer maintaining his position as chief.
Caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yes, I have a comment here. I remember years ago, back in the early 60s, we had a family member that was arrested from a sheriff. And the sheriff hit him with a club that kind of dazed him. And the city police came in, and there was two officers held that individual's arms. And this other individual guy was wearing some gloves that are filled with sand and beat that individual 3 times in the stomach. And his Mitchell was unarmed. During that period of time in the 60s and earlier, there was a lot of racist cops and a lot of rednecks involved. So what happened is that all the family members that we were here, cousin, uncle, everybody else, we discussed that. We contacted somebody out of state. It was a judge and jury. They came down, and it was wrong, but it was right. So they came down and they seen 3 officers and they beat him with a baseball bat to show them a lesson and pay them, hey, you can't be doing this. You're going to get paid. In those days, you had to take what you had to do to protect yourself. And I see this now is that it's going back to those days. So whatever the family do to those officers, it's up to them. But, you know, they have to evaluate the issue and then take charge of what they want to do. Now, what does the attorney think about this?
I think that you're right. I think that there has been a change in our society. I think that we're becoming more motivated by governmental involvement. I think that the post 9/11 society, that we're giving up more and more of our constitutional rights, and that we're giving more and more authority to government. And I think that, I think we're seeing that particularly in Fresno. I mean, the city council just put a kibosh on the chief wanting to have electronic surveillance where they're doing Facebook and Twitter and searching all of the social media.
They banned that program.
As well as all the cameras they've got everywhere. I mean, the reality is the book Big Brother, or 1984, was just a couple of years off, because the reality is now we're subjected to a lot of governmental scrutiny that we never had before.
Well, you can't go anywhere without being on camera now, whether it's a business that has security cameras. You can even walk to somebody's home on private property, somebody's home, and you could be on camera. I've actually seen where people put up signs, welcome, you're on candid camera if you walk up to the door. So, and with the cell phone craze now, there's no privacy, Chuck.
Well, and that's the other thing, that's the other reality that I think law enforcement's having to deal with, and that is because of the cell phone craze, many things that they did when there wasn't a witness or there wasn't a videotape of the arrest, many of the ways that they did things before are now subject to public scrutiny because we're watching it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that wasn't a factor for years. And so the way that they deal with things publicly, whenever they're out in the public, they need to they recognize that they're going to be videotaped doing it.
Right. And, as we go to break here, I just want to mention, if you remember the Rodney King beating, that happened before the cell phone craze.
Right.
It happened before all these cameras were everywhere and anywhere. It just happened to be someone nearby with one of those old-fashioned videotape cameras that videotaped the police beating Rodney King, or we would not have a record of it, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah.
But in this day and age, that's commonplace. It record something on a cell phone. Let's take the call before we go to break. Caller, you're on the line with Charles Chuck Magill. Caller? Go ahead. You there? No, apparently not. Okay, call back 436-MeTV option 11. Back with more of Charles Chuck Magill and your phone calls. McHenry Protective Services, your sponsor today, here on the program on Connect with Me. It's no wonder why the city of Fresno and so many Valley businesses choose McHenry Protective and Investigative Services. With over 50 years of experience in public safety and security, McHenry's team of experts will safeguard you, your commercial property, and your next big event. Professional service, marked patrol vehicles, 24-hour dispatch, and friendly, observant, and responsive armed and unarmed guards are just a few of the reasons you should contact McHenry at 559-478-7747 or visit them online at mchenryprotection.com.
Unscramble. Sing, honey, sing.
Call them classics, call them the best. Call them favorites, be our guest. Every day there's more to come. Watch and see, there's only one. Me TV.
Try me.
Me. That's memorable, that's me. That's me. Me, you gotta see. That's memorable, that's me. Me TV.
Back here on Connect with Me on MeTV Fresno. Caller, you're there, I hope, this time with Charles Chuck Magill. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Hey, Chuck, let me ask you a question. I think with all the media and everything, the media has given the police officers a bad rap. I'm not saying they're all perfect. I think a lot of, like you say, it comes from the top, but at the same time, they have to get training as far as individuals who have mental issues, and you don't know that. Yeah. But some of it goes into is, let's say, a pocket or whatever. An officer doesn't know if he's going to pull out a gun and shoot. So they're trained to, shoot first and ask questions later. A lot of times, a lot of the relatives and all that, they're already hurt and all that, and they're going to say what the media wants to hear. And so a lot of the times, police officers are already in a situation where they're getting a bad rap. Now, apparently, with you, I mean, you have to take things into consideration. And sure, there's a lot of individuals that have those mental issues. But I'm not saying that all the police officers are perfect, but it comes from training these officers. What is a weapon and what is someone can be pulling out a water gun or whatever, but you don't know what it is. And I give credit to Jerry Dyer. Whether he leaves it in 2 or 3 years, that's up to him. And I think he's done probably the best job Fresno's ever had as far as a police chief. And that's all I want to say, because they get a bad rap with the media.
I hope you didn't misunderstand my statement, and that is, my statement isn't that I don't think that police officers have an extremely difficult responsibility.
You're not anti-police.
No, absolutely not. I think what they do, I respect what they do. I respect the fact that they are constantly faced with circumstances that are life and death circumstances. I agree with what the caller said, but I do believe that we should expect from our law enforcement. We're paying them a salary that's a livable salary now. They're making good money in retirement. They should be well trained. They should be well educated. They should know about health issues. They should know about psychological issues of the people they're dealing with, and they should be better at making judgments than a kid watching a video game whether to shoot or not to shoot. And the reality is, I think that's where we need to do more training and have more experience. They need to recognize their position, and that is there to protect us, even when we're not protecting ourselves.
But is the caller right to a certain extent because these officers are not trained in mental health issues?
I think he's right. I think the reality is that they should have more training in that area. I honestly believe that they are well enough paid, that they should be well educated with dealing with the social issues that we have as a society now.
Yeah. Caller, are you there? Go ahead.
Mr. Malice, I called in on a previous show saying that the city of Fresno has their own cameras that are hooked into the police department with being viewed all over the town, not every square inch, but at key points. Also, Caltrans has their own cameras that they can read your driver's license on the car.
Yeah.
They can do facial recognition. They are Also taking some live feeds all the time from private cameras.
Yeah.
And please have your guest comment on that.
I think the caller is right. I think a lot of the stuff that the government is possessing, we're not getting privy to. The only way you're going to find out a videotape that Caltrans has is if you subpoena it as a result of a accident or in a criminal case. And we've watched video, we've seen video where law enforcement has cameras that are capable of going right down into somebody's front yard and looking at the color of the dog in the front yard. The reality is we are in a different time frame than we were before. There is no such thing as privacy if it's out in the public. If it's subject to being publicly scrutinized, then privacy is gone.
All right, here's the thing. As mentioned before, these police officers over the weekend, I believe it was Saturday afternoon, were wearing these body cams. And so Police Chief Jerry Dyer came out just the other day, and he commented about the shooting, that it's going to be reviewed. So now we have a quick soundbite with Jerry Dyer commenting on the police shooting. And so let's play this and find out what Jerry Dyer had to say about Dylan Noble, 19 years old, shot and killed by police.
During that encounter, the officers had provided repeated commands for the individual to show his hands, to show both of his hands. And then it was during that encounter where the officers felt that as a result of this person's refusal to cooperate, that they felt that perhaps this individual was armed with a firearm. And that was based on the fact that he had placed one of his hands behind his back, his right hand, as he was walking towards the officers very rapidly. And at some point made the comment, I hate my effing life, and then pulled his hand out very quickly. It's an unfortunate tragedy. You have a family that's lost a loved one, a 19-year-old son. And I'm sure they have a lot of questions, questions that we don't have answers for at this time. But at this point, we don't know. We don't know why. We don't know why this individual refused to cooperate with the officers. We don't know why he had his hand behind his back and why he made that statement. Because we're talking about a 19-year-old man, young man who doesn't have any criminal history. And so we're trying to figure out why this occurred. At some point in time, I'm confident that video is going to be released. But right now we're early on in the investigation, and we do not want to release video that's going to taint any other witnesses that have yet to come forward to provide information to the officers. We believe that there's certain evidence that you have to hold on to until you can complete your investigation, or at least the initial phase of the investigation, which means all of the interviews being completed. And the video, whether it's shown this week or in 4 weeks, is not going to change.
All right, that was Jerry Dyer commenting that he's not going to release the body cam videos right now, and you say to that what?
I think that's bullshit. I think the reality of it is those body cameras are on the officers at the request of the public. They serve us. They are peace officers serving the peaceful recognition of the people. And I think the reality is allowing him to interpret what's on those videos without letting us see it is improper. It's wrong. We should be able to see what's on those videos. That's why they're there.
Well,
and I think that would certainly, if everything Jerry Dyer is saying is correct, and I have no reason to disbelieve that it isn't correct, I would think it would put the people that are concerned about whether this was an improper shooting or not.
Trust or principle?
But the reality is that the family of the young man that died should have a right to see what happened, so that could put their fears to
rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
They should be able to see, you know what? This Dustin was acting unusual. Something was wrong with him right then. This isn't the person that we knew. We can't believe he did that. But they should be at least be able to see that. I disagree with him that somehow that's going to taint their investigation.
All right. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air with Chuck Magill.
2 points. Number one, Yes, I agree. When you have evidence, you should go ahead and peruse it and find out all the case. And I'm sure that probably they're going to investigate the family and the call and whatever went on before they even got to the scene, and probably the medical background of the patient. And I think once they get everything together, then that's right. They should release it. The second point is it's easy for you two to sit there. You're not in the position. You weren't faced with the gun. You weren't faced in the situation, and you can sit and you can criticize. But I wonder, in all honesty, if you were standing there and they had their hand behind their back and they pulled that out, are you going to sit there and say, well, let's wait a minute here and see, now if he shoots us and we get a hole in us, now maybe we should shoot now? Wouldn't that be a little late to shoot? Wouldn't you be dead on the ground? I mean, you do have to consider that neither one of you is actually going to stand there and let somebody shoot you before you actually fire your gun. I mean, get real.
Well, there is that side of it, and I mean, she did bring up, and I was going to bring up that point, but she beat me to the punch.
Right.
So is there this other side to it?
What does he call this? Monday? Of course, we're Monday morning quarterbacking because we weren't there, and the reality is all we can do is Monday morning quarterback. But I would take umbrage with what she said, and that is, if I was in that position, I would expect to be well trained and well armed.
And you're saying that the Fresno PD is not well trained.
Well, I'm not saying that. I mean, I don't.
No, but in mental health issues.
I mean, I believe that they should be retrained to deal with people with mental health issues. So when someone goes for suicide with a cop, that they make certain that that person's at risk to them, as well as to themselves.
You just kind of wonder if some of these cases are suicide by cop. You just have to wonder without knowing.
And the reality of it is, I mean, and I pull it back to Australia. I was just in Australia. In Australia, it's very rare to see an officer with a gun. So I suspect that a lot of people would know that that would be a non-worthwhile.
It's rare to see an officer with a gun?
I mean, it was unusual how
hang on, caller.
uncommon that was.
Yeah, I don't know that that's reality here, though. I don't know that we could ever do that. But
passed 20 years ago when they had their first multiple shooting, they passed a ban on assault weapons. It's 17 years ago. And
why can't we do that here?
Guess what? They haven't had one since.
Why can't we do that
in 17 years, they haven't had a mass shooting in Australia with an assault weapon since they passed it 20 years ago. They haven't had one.
Why can't we ban assault weapons here?
Because there's too much of a pull by the NRA in America, where they have way too much power.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is, you can't even make it so it's illegal for someone on a watch list to get a weapon. That's insane. We've got to get real about the fact that we need to address those issues in America.
Caller, you're on the line with Charles McGill. Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Tony, and police officers are supposed to be trained between lethal and non-lethal force. Right. And when someone poses a threat with lethal force, that's when they're supposed to react with the gun. But when non-lethal force, it doesn't matter the person's mental stability. If they're not out to kill you and you could use your taser gun, they should use the taser gun instead of killing them.
Yeah.
And the reason they shoot is because they're scared. If they're scared, they shouldn't be police officers.
You're right, caller. You're absolutely right. I mean, and again, it's an issue of it goes back to an issue of training, and we're Monday morning quarterbacking. Let's be clear. We don't know what happened. We didn't see it. We should be able to see it. We should have gotten a videotape, quite frankly, to show that
immediately.
I think that the reality is the family or small members of the community that get the videotape aren't going to be witnesses to this crime. They weren't there. So to say that they're holding it back from everybody, I think it's improper. I mean, I think the family has a right to know immediately after the shooting if the shooting was a sound shooting or not, and draw their own conclusions by watching the videotape when there's a videotape available. I would be hurt if I was one of his family members and the chief comes on and says, I've watched the video, his actions were inappropriate, the officer's actions were appropriate, and he was shot in an appropriate way. I'd want to see that, and I don't think that's unreasonable. There's no way I'm going to be a witness to the crime because I wasn't there.
Yeah,
so,
don't we have a right to see that immediately, just the way the police officers do?
I think we do, and I think that that's another thing that we need to address as a community. And don't misunderstand me. This all falls with the fact that what they do is a very dangerous job with with split-second decisions. But the reality of it is, those split-second decisions should be well trained to deal with it. And like he said, if they're afraid, they shouldn't be police officers because they're putting their life at risk for us, and we're paying them to do it.
Well, Jerry Dyer says that the police investigation would in fact be tainted if they release that video now.
Well, how? I mean, it depends on who they release it to, number one. And the number two is, I'm talking about family members that want to know what happened to their son or their nephew or their grandson. They should have a right to know who that is, know what that is. And those witnesses couldn't be witnesses because they weren't there. So it couldn't taint their investigation. I disagree.
Caller, quickly, what's your question to Chuck Magill?
I think, I learned a long time ago. I'm not from Fresno, but one time I did visit Fresno when I was a young lad. And I learned real young, it's yes sir, no sir to the Fresno Police Department. Whatever happened to that? Because I see a lot of problems with Fresno PD is people challenging them and trying to get tough with them. But I learned a long time ago, it's yes sir, no sir to the Fresno PD or any PD, as a matter of fact. I learned as a young kid. You respect a police officer, and they tell you to do something, you comply, and then take care of things later. But you confront Fresno PD, and you're gonna get slammed. That's just my thing.
Okay. All right. Well, want to comment before we go to break?
I've raised 5 kids in Fresno, and all of my children were taught you comply with law enforcement first. Even if your constitutional rights are being trampled upon, you comply with them because you can always address those rights at a later date. But you can't, at the moment, that officer expects you to comply, and if you don't, the consequences can be dire, and those can't be fixed.
Yeah. Good advice. 436-ME-TV, option 11 if you want to weigh in. Today's sponsor, McHenry Protective Services, on the program. We're back in just a moment with our conversation. It's no wonder why the city of Fresno and so many Valley businesses choose McHenry Protective and Investigative Services. With over 50 years of experience in public safety and security, McHenry's team of experts will safeguard you, your commercial property, and your next big event. Professional service, marked patrol vehicles, 24-hour dispatch, and friendly, observant, and responsive armed and unarmed guards are just a few of the reasons you should contact McHenry at 559-478-7747 or visit them online at mchenryprotection.com.
If you have a need to promote your business or event, please consider MeTV Fresno for your next campaign. MeTV reaches over 100,000 of your potential customers in the Fresno area every single week. Plus, you can rest assured that your commercial is running in the greatest family-friendly programs of all time. MeTV Fresno delivers a strong, loyal audience ready to buy, and your campaign will cost a fraction of what you're paying for your advertising now. Call me today to find out how affordable MeTV is at 905-1925.
Unscramble. Sing, honey, sing.
Calling classics, calling the best. Calling favorites, be a guest. Every day there's more to come. Watch and see, there's only one. Me TV.
Try me.
Me. That's memorable, that's me. That's me. Me. You gotta see. That's memorable, that's me. Me TV.
Hey, we're back here on the program, 436-ME-TV, option 11. Chuck, we have another call. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, gentlemen. I want to say I agree with Mr. Dyer that the police think about the gun first. And they should, first they should learn how to use unarmed combat, their hands and their feet, knees, elbows, etc., etc. I have some experience in this, about 40 years as a matter of fact. And the police do not train themselves with anything but weapons nowadays. They need to use unarmed combat first. You need to know how to take a knife away from somebody, and you should know how to do that. And excuse me, gentlemen, I think my blood pressure is spiking.
Okay. Well, Chuck, go ahead.
You know, I can't disagree with what the caller just said, and that is that they should be very well trained well trained, not just as in a weapons expertise, but also well trained physically, so that they are in a position where if someone does have a knife, they can take it away. They don't have to use deadly force. And if the only option you've got is to use the weapon, then you're going to use deadly force more often than not.
Well, you know, I know what you said about the culture in the Fresno Police Department. I do have in front of me here a series of articles that I was able to pull about the Fresno Police Department. One of them talks about reorganization once the budget is passed. The other one talks about what this caller brought up. Recently, a jury found that the police shooting was justified of a woman who was shot and killed, Veronica Lynn Cantor, 48 years old, shot and killed by police on March 7, 2014, after she pulled out some kitchen knives. So the judge dismissed the case, a bias suit against the Fresno Police Department. Here's a former Fresno police officer on trial for hitting his daughter. There are other things besides police shootings that are going on inside the Fresno Police Department, not to mention the least of this civil suit by an ACLU attorney out in San Francisco against Jerry Dyer in the police department. So another phone call coming in. So what do you make of it? Does this department need a whole makeover? Forget about the morale. Look at everything else that's going on in the department.
Wow. I mean, well, you know, the thing that I find shocking is...
Hang on, caller.
When the assistant chief is arrested for dealing drugs. And that,
well, that's another one.
And that doesn't have an impact on the administration. It doesn't have an impact on candidates who are running for city council. They all are supporting the Dyer regime. But the reality is that in and of itself, and I suspect that Chief Dyer had no way to know what was going on by his
Nonetheless,
assistant.
Should he have been shown the door?
It's when you're sitting at the top of the food chain, all bets drop at your door, and so those kinds of things should have an impact on his position and maintaining his position. I don't think they do.
But all these other things I mentioned that are going on, besides that Deputy Chief Foster thing, all these other things,
civil suits that he's been subjected to for discrimination by captains. Right. He's had a lot of things that have happened as far. But is it Jerry Dyer or is it the times we live in? I don't know. It's you know, we are living in different times than we were 20 years ago.
Yeah, caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Chuck, let me ask you a question. You talked about you know, when they have the body cameras and all that they should automatically give, you know, that over to the family or whoever, you know, just to let the people know what happened. Now, my feeling is, if they do, the media already has it. Okay, number one, and number two is lawyers are ready to get all that information where they can make their own judgment before a police officers, okay? Because as it is, I don't think you have Jerry in his desk that they're, you know, saying, hey, yeah, good job and whatnot, you know. No, he's sensitive. I can tell, too. He's sensitive to every issue, especially the 19-year-old that was shot for whatever reason. He has to look at what he has, and then he has to justify to the family members, you know, why they did it, you know. Right. And I think, like,
I agree with what the caller's saying, in a sense that, yes, that I think he was very sensitive and he was very, very understanding that there was a loss here. I disagree with the philosophy that those tapes couldn't have been released, at least to the family members, so could put their fears at least at ease as to what happened on that occasion. They have a right to know, and as a compassionate person, I think it's appropriate to give them the opportunity to watch the videotapes themselves and say yes or no, that they think the conduct was appropriate or not, because that's not something they should be lingering about.
Okay, I want to get to some other topics here, but hang on, caller. I'll get to you in a moment. But just to finalize this and move on, do you think with all the other things going on in the Fresno Police Department that I mentioned, including Chief Foster, including the civil case, including all these other things, suits against Jerry Dyer, other policemen that are on trial for various reasons, whether it's being involved in some kind of chop shop or hitting his daughter, should Jerry Dyer at this point been shown the door?
That's a tough question. I really think it's a tough thing to answer. I mean, he has a department with quite a few officers in it, and
almost 800.
And
yeah.
Other than things that point to him directly, you know, the lawsuits where he's been sued for violating the civil rights of different officers, it's kind of hard to say that he's responsible for his assistants dealing drugs, or someone having running a chop shop, or an officer having a domestic issue with his wife and daughter. I think that's a hard one to drop back at his door.
All right, take this call. We got to move on to other topics quickly. Caller, short on time.
Yes, sir. Well, the thing is they don't have to go for the kill shot all the time. They can wound a man with a knife, or bring a knife to a gunfight. Have you ever heard that? But they don't always have to use lethal force. And it's not only happening in Fresno, it's happening all up and down California and all over the United States, really. Okay. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Chuck.
I think that there's a philosophical view of from law enforcement generally, that if you use deadly force, then you use deadly force to kill. Because the reality is, if you don't use deadly force to kill, the consequences can be that person can injure the officers.
Okay, move on to something else, another topic here, and that is the homeless issue. Let's roll a videotape and we'll talk over this. Recently, Mayor Ashley Swearingen, who was only in office for a few more months, came out and said she has a plan on how to totally end the homeless issue, which has been ongoing for years. She says we need immediate housing for those who are chronically homeless. And a regular outreach and more funding. Swearingen said the plan will end chronic homelessness for veterans by the end of this year, for the most vulnerable by 2017, and for the less vulnerable 2018. Swearingen released the 2016 point-in-time homeless count during a news conference recently at the baseball park. Hang on, caller. Whoops. So I guess that caller got tired of waiting. So is it possible to end homelessness the way Mayor Swearingen wants to, or is this a pipe dream?
Well, I've heard that some major American cities have been able to put a real damper into homelessness. I'm thinking of like Salt Lake City, built a bunch of mini homes for the homeless, and as a result, they have a very small percentage of homeless people that are living on the streets of Salt Lake City. So is it a problem that can be addressed? I think that there are things that we can do as a community to address homelessness.
Does it all point back to mental health?
Some of it does.
Or is it bad luck on some
I think some
part
of
of some people?
Some of it, I mean, the reality is that we, I think we all know that, if you live on your income that you make every month, that you're only a couple months away from losing it all if you didn't have work for a couple of months.
Yeah.
So I think that as a society we recognize that anyone can be in that position, but I think the long-term homelessness, there are issues that have got to be addressed, and a lot of it, some of it's mental health issues that people choose to live on the streets. And that's something that you've got to divide. You've got to find those that choose to be there and those that can't help but be there.
Can she end it?
I think she can. But it's gonna. I don't think she can.
Not because there's too short a window right now.
Of course, and I don't think she could do this by herself. I think the Fresno major metropolitan area, I think we can, if we support a philosophy and plan that's unified. It can be done.
All right, let's put up a photo and talk about the mayor's race. Henry Perea and Lee Brand. It's come down to these two for November the 8th, of course, the general election. There is Henry Perea right now. He's a sitting supervisor. And, of course, Lee Brand, a sitting city councilman in District 6 right now. So these two are going to vie for the top spot of the city of Fresno. And how do you see this race happening? Because Perea is way out in front right now.
The interesting thing about...
Caller, wait a moment, please.
Okay. The interesting thing about a runoff race is just because one party's ahead in the runoff doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win the race. because of the change in the dynamic of not having 3 or 4 candidates, they've got to split that vote.
But will Brand pick up some of those votes
I
from?
expect that Brand was going to pick up most of H's votes because H is a Republican, Brand's a Republican, H is a conservative, Brand was a conservative.
And then you got the Vegam votes too.
I think that those votes will filter into Brand, but I don't think that the outcome is going to be any different. I think Henry has created a well-greased, well-ran political machine that he's got name recognition based upon him and his son both being involved in Fresno politics for years, and I think he's going to be hard to beat.
A well-oiled political machine. He's almost acting and looking the part of a mayor, where Lee Brand, I've noticed, has, for the lack of a better term, I'm going to steal it from Donald Trump, has low energy. Low energy. Will that make a difference?
I think it'll make a big difference. I think you're right. I think Henry is I've listened to him speak, and Henry is phenomenal in his grasp of subjects, his way to produce a talk about something. I was extremely impressed, and I've not heard Brand personally. I haven't watched him in a speech, but the feel I get is that he's not as articulate and organized as Henry is at speaking.
And doesn't have a good grasp for the issues as Henry does?
I think your point is correct. I think he's just rather bland in the way he addresses the politics in Fresno.
Caller, short on time. Go ahead.
Yes. Good morning. I'm just calling on the issue about the homeless. Yes, I probably do agree that maybe they need to build homes or where they can live. But I feel like maybe so many of them have been out there so long that it might be a mental thing now, because a lot of them I see that they have a habit, either alcohol or maybe even drugs, who knows, but they've been out there so long living the way they've been living. I don't know if it'll probably work for a little while, but then they're so used to having what they have the way they do, and a lot of them don't really keep up, because they've been out in the streets so long. And so I think I don't know, something they have to really think about. But obviously something has to be done.
Bring up some great points. I really appreciate it, caller. What do you think?
Well, I'm thinking of the gentleman that I see every night as I'm coming home from work, that has the sign out that says, "Why lie? I want a beer. I want a beer." I mean, the reality of it is, he's satisfied with the circumstances that he's in, because he's an alcoholic. Because if he's looking for beer when it's 108 degrees, there's something more going on there. And most of the programs that we've got that are focused on homelessness expect them to address those type of issues. So that gentleman, I suspect, isn't going to be leaving the corner with a sign, "Why lie? I want a beer." I don't see him going into a homeless shelter at all.
We got about 4 or 5 minutes left in the show. 436 MeTV option 11. I want to give another good shout out to our sponsor today, McHenry Protective Services. We appreciate their sponsorship here on the program today. Another topic, and that is the District 6 City Council race. Jeremy Pierce and Gary Bredefeld. Of course, we got photos of both of them. We know what they look like by now, but we're going to put their photos up anyway. So it's a runoff between these two. Holly Carter, pretty much left out in the cold. What do you make of this race?
It's interesting that we've got Bredefeld running for, effectively re-election, because he'd been on the council before.
That's Jeremy Pierce, by the way.
Jeremy Pierce, I've heard that Jeremy Pierce is a darling of the conservative Republicans in that district. That's a pretty strongly Republican district. I suspect that's the reason why he was able to top Holly Carter. Bredefeld is, I believe, well connected to the Democratic side of things, and so it should be an interesting race.
Is Bredefeld too thin-skinned when it comes to the stadium issue?
I don't know. I mean,
every time someone brings that up, including me, he He kind of loses it.
Oh, really? Well, I mean, I don't know him. I haven't had a chance to interview him.
He voted yes for the stadium, of course,
Sure.
and now the stadium's a big issue because it's losing money and the team might be sold and so on and so on.
Yeah, but you know, as far as Fresno's concerned, and particularly Fresno downtown, that's the only thing in downtown Fresno that's drawn people to downtown Fresno is that stadium.
Nothing else?
I don't think that we haven't seen.
What about all those housing projects?
I mean, I work downtown. I've got my office downtown. I see all the housing projects that are being built, but I haven't really seen a big glob of people hanging around those apartments, nor have I seen the kind of activity that you get with the stadium. And the stadium, I think, is not just the baseball, but it's also the other activities they have there. I mean, I think it's being pretty well utilized, and it seems to be bringing people downtown.
So despite the fact that it costs so much money, the stadium,
sure,
well worth it?
I think so. I mean, as someone whose office is downtown, I can tell you the only time that there's a parking issue is when something's going on in that stadium.
Huh.
And I think
no other time.
And I think it does have a heart for the community. I think we, as the city of Fresno, I think it does give us something to be proud of. It does give us something to react to. And look at all the other events that have been held there. I mean, the soccer tournament, it was sold out for the recent 2 Mexico teams that were there for soccer. It was standing room only, and they filled that place up. And that's a venue that we wouldn't have if we hadn't built it in Fresno.
3 minutes left here in the show, Chuck. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton. The Benghazi report came out. It's on the front page of the Bee today. Of course, it was all over the news yesterday.
Right.
There's our guy Donald Trump, and where's our female candidate Hillary Clinton? There she is, lurking in the shadows right there, waiting to take the wings at the White House. What do you make of the race so far? It's a nasty and going to get nastier.
You know, nasty. I don't know if that's true or not. I think we all have come to accept the reality that we have a different type of candidate in Donald Trump. We saw what he did to his Republican opponents who had years of experience in Washington, had years of experience on the campaign trail. I mean, you've got someone who's a generational candidate like Jeb Bush, whose father was president and brother was president, and he eviscerated him. He just completely eviscerated him by saying what he thinks, whether there's any truth to it or not. And he's doing the same thing. And quite frankly, the question is are we listening now as a society?
Or are we tuning out?
Are we tuning out? Or we just listen to what he says? I mean,
are we tuning out?
I mean, it's like he was in Scotland when Brexit was passed, and he's saying, "Great, they've taken back their country." Of course, he's standing in Scotland that voted 75%, 72% against Brexit, and he's standing there saying, "Yes, they're taking back their country." It clearly shows me that he has no concept of foreign policy. He has no concept of what it is, what that was about, what that vote was about, and it clearly shows me that we don't care because he's still.
But are we tuning out when both candidates come on? Are we turning off the TV or changing the channel?
I don't think that either one of them is really speaking to the heart of America right now. I mean, I don't see him as the same kind of candidate that Bernie Sanders was on the Democratic side.
Yeah.
And I don't see anyone rising to the level in the Republican side to challenge him because he talks about things that affect people that are angry about the way society is going, and he says what they want to hear. It doesn't matter whether there's any truth to it or not.
Yeah, quickly, 30 seconds. There's a measure on the ballot now that already qualified for the ballot. It's to legalize recreational marijuana here in California. It'll be on the ballot in November. We got like 20 seconds now. Will it pass?
I believe it will pass. I think that the governor as well as the state has gotten themselves prepared for it. They've started a Department of Agriculture just for marijuana. And I think that the reality of it is that marijuana is going to be the kind of boon that wine is to California.
Okay, got to go. Chuck, thank you so much for coming on the show. Come back again.
Thanks a lot, John.
Soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Chuck Magill, one of our major sponsors here on the program. He's an attorney at law. We'll see you tomorrow with Becky Cinema and Lee Brand on Friday. Have a good day.
Should be fun.
Sing for me.
It's the place we all come home to, no place we'd rather be.
Where?
Home is where you'll find me. That's memorable.
That's me. Me?
Calling classics, call them the best. Calling favorites, be our guest. Every day there's more to come. Watch and see, there's only one. Me TV.
Look at me.
All day, all night.
Me.
That's memorable, that's me.
That's me.
Me TV.
It's no wonder why the City of Fresno and so many Valley businesses choose McHenry Protective and Investigative Services. With over 50 years of experience in public safety and security, McHenry's team of experts will safeguard you, your commercial property, and your next big event. Professional service, marked patrol vehicles, 24-hour dispatch, and friendly, observant, and responsive armed and unarmed guards are just a few of the reasons you should contact McHenry at 559-478-7747 or visit them online at McHenryProtection.com.